What is going on, my fellow devotees? It's Depeche Mode, the podcast, and on this week's episode, where is Depeche Mode currently on the top 2023 tour rankings? An interesting review coming out of the Las Vegas show, 5 thoughts after the Vegas show, plus your listener feedback this week.
Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Hi, this is Dave Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to
My Nerd World.
Welcome to it. And yes, that's right, it is My Nerd World. I'm your host, Jon Justice. Live from the world that we live in and life in general. Spreading the news around the world. I hope you're having yourself a fantastic week. It is Depeche Mode, the podcast, and you know it's going to be a good day, especially if you live here in Minnesota like I do, where it's December 7th. The sun is shining. It is a nice, moderate, like 45 degrees, and I can actually get out on my bike and go for a ride. Yeah, it's cold for a little bit, but after a minute or two, your body adjusts. You also know it's going to be a good day when you're out on said bike ride. You have your iTunes playlist on shuffle, and it lands on the B-side from Songs of Faith and Devotion, My Joy. You know, that always brings a smile to my face. It got me thinking, too, I would love to hear more tracks from Songs of Faith and Devotion, but with Christian Eigner on drums. I was just thinking about that listening to that track because My Joy, Get Right With Me, and I know those songs, you know, one's a B-side, the other song is typically not at the top of a lot of people's favorites from Songs of Faith and Devotion. That being said, the drums on that album are really bold, comparatively speaking to other Depeche Mode releases. And as we know, you know, Alan did a lot of the drum work, certainly live. I would love to hear what Christian could do in a live setting with the drums on a majority of those tracks. Alas, that'll probably never happen, but you can always dare to dream, right? All right, let's get into some of the news this week. As I was popping around the internet, I found some interesting items that I wanted to share with you before we dive into your email, your listener feedback this week. Coldplay and Depeche Mode were among the highest grossing tours of 2023. So Chris Martin and company have earned a total of $342.5 million over 55 shows. That puts them in the number 2 spot on the year-end Billboard Top Tours chart. Depeche Mode sits at number 9 with $175.2 million over 47 shows. Now, other artists who made the top 40, just by comparison, include Metallica at 14, Guns N' Roses at 18, Blink-182 at 19, Muse at number 20, Red Hot Chili Peppers at 23, Dave Matthews Band at 30, Imagine Dragons at number 33. At number 1 was Beyonce. Now, you might notice there's a rather large artist not on this list. I'll get to that in a moment. Beyonce earned $570 million over 50 shows. Notably, Taylor Swift is not on this list, as figures for her era's tour have not been reported to Billboard. I can't look at if Beyonce is sitting at number 1. I can't even fathom the amount of money that Taylor Swift has brought in. Now, I assume that this is majority merchandise because the venues get quite a bit of money for when the tour arrives. And so ticket sales as well is going to, you know, Ticketmaster and other, you know, ticket sellers. So I imagine that a majority of what we're looking at in terms of dollars is because of the merchandising. And I also wonder if this is after expenditures. If you have insight on this, I'd really be interested to hear from you on, you know, if it's $175.2 million over 47 shows for Depeche, how much of that is take home? Is that all take home among the band members and the crew? I'd be very interested. I also wonder too, again, if I'm correct in my assessment that a lot of this has to do with the merchandise. which kind of begs the question a little bit of whether or not the band could have done better had they maybe had better merchandise. I was a little disappointed on this tour, I'm not going to lie, and I have been for the past few tours. Comparatively speaking to what a lot of these artists do, the lack of a wide variety of Depeche Mode merchandise is very surprising to me. I know at other shows they've gone deeper into the catalog and sold shirts from other eras of the band, and I believe that they had some limited items available, but I would think that if they had produced a wider variety of whether it's Memento Mori merchandise or merchandise from other eras. I know that I'm always clamoring for the official stuff. It's very similar to my views as it relates to fandoms in pop culture like Star Wars. I'm a canon story guy. I don't really get into the legend stuff. When it comes to Depeche Mode, I'd much rather have items that were officially coming from the band than aftermarket. Now, that also means you're going to be paying a lot more. And this time around, just in terms of the amount of artwork they had to work with, it was very minimal in respect to the promotion around Memento Mori. So I'm just wondering if they could have raked in more money if they had had a wider variety. And this goes back to what I've talked about before during this particular Memento Mori era, and that is we are in a different time as it relates to the release of the singles. We're not getting specific artwork like we have in the past for the single releases because we're not getting the physical releases. And when we do get the physical releases, especially the vinyl releases, this is not Anton Corbijn artwork. It's other other artistic outlets that are doing riffs and their own sort of visual remixes of the artwork for that particular record. So I'd be curious to get your thoughts on this. Again, I want official merchandise, and I get disappointed when I go to the website and see that it's very limited in terms of the items that you could buy. Leave me an email, talkshownerd@gmail.com. I'd be curious to get your thoughts on that. But either way, it's pretty interesting that Depeche Mode sits at number 9, considering especially a band like Metallica. You know, I would expect it when it comes to Guns N' Roses, Blink-182, Muse, and the Chili Peppers, especially Dave Matthews. But even Imagine Dragons. I mean, I think it continues to show you just how popular this band is, even after all of these years. Amber Sampson writes in Las Vegas after the T-Mobile Arena show on December 1st, and I thought this was rather clever. As opposed to sort of a standard review of the show, she's put together 5 thoughts. Depeche Mode at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. So I figured I'd run through some of these. They're pretty interesting. Share with you my thoughts as well as we work through the podcast this week. At number 1, pardon the pun, but Depeche Mode just can't seem to get enough of Las Vegas. For the second time this year, the groundbreaking synth-pop band graced the stage of T-Mobile Arena, packing a stamina-filled 2.5-hour set with several decades' worth of old hits. Such feats warrant admiration. And trust me when I say I've got plenty after watching these legends at work for the first time. With tension building around Memento Mori Speak to Me, founding members Dave Gahan and Martin Gore took to the stage, assuming their roles as atmosphere-altering conductors. A large M lingered in the background, slowly filling with paper white paint as Gahan coolly transitioned into the synth-powered sadness of Wagging Tongue. It's odd to say it, but Sorrow becomes lead vocalist Gahan. His poignant drawl, juxtaposed with the band's electronic waltz of keys and drum machines, is an addictive combo that I've yet to rid from my head. I'm always impressed by casual fans and writers and their ability to articulate the uniqueness about this band. I constantly am thinking when I'm listening to Depeche Mode songs of just how unique they truly are. Sure, there are other artists out there that you can kind of compare to them, but they just tapped into something magical. I go back to Flood and the making of Violator on the remastered special editions that came out, and just his desire to combine the pop with the electronic with a bit of the blues, which they say that, and I know it's there in Violator, but it's just there in the background, certainly not up front in later releases like, say, Delta Machine. I think the band really benefited in that moment of time with who Flood had been working with around that era, be it Nine Inch Nails or U2. And to me, it really ended up facilitating a different vibe than what we had received further or beforehand in the albums that had, preceded Violator, and why Violator kind of stood out. I think a lot of that had to do with Flood and the fact that, he didn't want to do what U2 did, didn't want to do what Nine Inch Nails did. He wanted to do what Depeche Mode does, but bring it to another level, and he certainly did that. Number 2 on Amber's list. Age ain't nothing but a number. For a 61-year-old frontman, the spry and limber Gahan could run circles around music's most youthful prospects today, and then some. Come on, let's hear it, he demanded from the arena, holding out the microphone stand during a sing-along of Walking in My Shoes. Gahan strutted the stage like a catwalk, parading around in a cloaked sort of confidence you can't exactly try on. You either have it or you don't. Coolly lifting a pant leg, the singer showed off his boots, twirled with his microphone, and swiveled his hips like a worldly man set in his sensual, charismatic ways. Damn it, Gahan, call me, she writes. Dave Gahan's an inspiration. I mean, he really is. And I hope that there's more commentary in the future, and perhaps I need to provide some more of that on this show. With what Dave Gahan has been through and what he's been able to accomplish and where he is today. Dave Gahan on stage during this tour, you would think this is a man who's kept himself clean all these years of his life. And you and I both know that simply isn't true. That man, flirted with death, died, came back, and made himself better for it. Endured the loss of a dear friend, which is difficult for anybody. I know of which I speak, and yet you wouldn't know it. I know that my expectations for Dave going into this tour were incredibly low. I expected, after so many years since Spirit, the loss of Fletch, time in and of itself, as you get into your 60s, that Dave was going to have slowed down, and he would be behind the microphone more so than he is dancing around the stage. And as you and I both know, anybody who's seen the show live or has watched it on YouTube, that simply is not the case, as Amber so eloquently wrote in her review of the Vegas show. Number 3, synth pop has never sounded better live. Nobody does danceable doom and gloom like Depeche Mode, and I simply couldn't get enough of the band's seasoned approach. My Favorite Stranger, which Gahan co-wrote alongside with Psychedelic Furs' Richard Butler, is a pummeling cut with some serious horsepower in studio, but hearing it live gave me a whole new appreciation for the song's scathing distortion and Gahan's douar baritone. Number 4. And this, again, is her 5 thoughts after seeing Depeche Mode in Vegas. Enjoy the silence belongs in a big room. T-Mobile's 20,000-seat arena was anything but silent when Depeche Mode finally dusted off this dance-laden mega hit. Strangers were singing to each other down the aisles, rubbing elbows, shoulders, and hips, and showering down the chorus from the nosebleeds. The band matched that energy even after more than 2 hours of playing nonstop. Last runs of the chorus were sung entirely by the arena as the members of Depeche Mode reverently watched. What a moment to behold. And number 5, a legacy like no other. Depeche Mode has proven it's still got plenty of gas left in the tank. How much longer that will remain the case has yet to be seen. But to see these musicians in fighting shape, still doing what they love most after all these years, puts a smile on my face. Amber, you are not the only one, and hat tip to you. That's a fantastic write-up for that Vegas show. I recall the early promotion for Memento Mori before the album came out, when Dave was doing the first of his interviews and talking about how he wasn't even sure he wanted to go out on the road again. And that's what really had me thinking that this was going to be a more subdued Dave. I wonder where his head is at now. I'll add it to the list of questions that I would ask were I ever to be blessed with the opportunity to interview my musical heroes. But I'd be very interested to know where he is right now. And perhaps at the moment isn't the right time. They're getting ready for a tour once again overseas. And once they wrap up this tour, who knows where the band's head is going to be at. But it seems pretty clear that they are not letting up on any of these shows and just giving everything they've got every single night. And that just doesn't go for Dave. That goes for Martin and the rest of the band as well. A hat tip to them as we get to your listener feedback this week. Amy from Worcestershire writes, "Greeting, John, from soggy old England. Thanks again for being kind enough to consider me for last week's fan spotlight. I had a chuckle to myself at the line about bringing my Doc Martens out of retirement, as I had been wearing them all day. Just about managed to avoid a blister. I'll take that as a win." Man, I have been so happy that I have not had any issue with the first pair of Docs that I've owned in, that's over 20 years, with this pair that I bought earlier this year in anticipation of going to see the show just a few weeks back. Well, actually, we're heading up on almost a month now. I can't believe time just absolutely flies. But yeah, I wear my Docs to work almost every day, and I haven't had any issue at all. So good on you for avoiding a blister as well. I'm sure the podcast also contributed to my dream last night. The Birmingham gig was being held in the grounds of some mansion. Definitely not the reality of Birmingham city center. And I was in a stampede of people trying to get in front of the standing section. I'm probably deluding myself that I do, in fact, get near the front at the actual gig. Any other friends of the show had any bonkers Depeche Mode dreams? Anyway, it would certainly be a dream to get one of Martin's guitar picks. Lucky you. Yeah, man, I got it right here. That's going in a display as soon as we get back some of the items that Melinda ordered, but I keep it right here next to my desk. Would love to know how you and Matt managed it. Go on, spill the secrets. Best wishes to you and all the friends of the show. Amy from Worcestershire. Listen, that's all Matt. I'll be honest. That's all Matt and his daughters. I think between our energy, the capes that we were wearing, and really the amount of energy, nonstop energy, that Matt's daughters were able to exude during the show, which, caught the band's attention. I mean, we all did at one point in time. I think it was actually, as Amber sort of jogged my memory, I think it was walking in my shoes when David came over and brought the mic down to all of us to sing into it, which was just an absolute magical moment. But the energy that Matt's daughters were giving off, I think, led to the handing over of the guitar picks at the end of the show. I'm bummed I didn't see it. I didn't see it take place. I didn't see the exchange take place. And that was one of the really magical things about being in the front row, was to be able to, in a few at a few different moments, make contact with everybody apart from Christian. Just a couple of moments there, just so special. And thank you, as always, for the email, Amy. All right, let's go here. Agent Orange writes, "I was at the Detroit show, and at the very end, Dave shouted to the audience, 'See you next time.' Is that considered confirmation this is not the end? I think so." Yeah, I really hope so, too. I really do. Dave's been saying that for years. Thankfully, it's been true for a number of years, and I still contend that this is not the end of the band, but you never know. I mean, listen, if it is, they're certainly going out on a high note. I pray that it's not, just because I think that they have more creativity in them, and I hope that this sparked it, and I hope the love from us, the fans, has inspired them as well. All right, let's go here. Chia writes this. First of all, hi, John. I really love your podcast. Thank you. I found you when I was devouring any news article related to DM when Memento Mori was announced, and I've been listening to your podcasts ever since. I've been a fan of DM since '86 when I first heard Strangelove and the radio waves in Brazil where I grew up. I later learned they became big in the U.S. because of college radio in L.A., but they still have a sizable following in Brazil sans college radio, but that is another story. I enjoy listening to the fan emails, and I was especially excited to hear your Denver experience. Since my turn was coming up Thanksgiving weekend, I built up the courage to write you because I wanted to share my DM concert experience that happened last Sunday at the Climate Pledge Arena. The last time they were in town, I couldn't go because I ended up in the delivery room the day of. Baby girl came on time, and I was betting she was going to be late. I missed them. Fast forward to 2023, and I'm going to see them with my teenage daughter and husband in tow. The whole Sunday, I was just giddy since I got my tickets in February during the pre-sale, and I could not contain my excitement that the day had finally come. Our seats were in the club arena with pretty decent views. The arena was packed up to the nosebleed seats. The energy was incredible. Feeling the beat of my Cosmos' mind, opening the show really took me to another dimension. When Martin started his solo portion, which meant we were about halfway through the show, I felt a little sad at how fast time was flying. Martin started singing a stripped-down version of Strangelove, and tears started flowing. He sang it so beautifully, I could hear the crowd sing along with him. I don't know, maybe it was just a mix of nostalgia and feeling like I was a teenager again, but this was the song that introduced me to DM. Listen, I'm not going to lie, just hearing you describe that almost makes me tear up, for crying out loud. I really enjoyed Just Can't Get Enough live, more than I thought. The light work was amazing. The bright yellow and orange lights, the only time I took my phone out to record the experience. The Seattle crowd did a pretty good job of singing along at the end of the song. I wonder, does the band do this to gauge the audience's enthusiasm? Then let's do a shout out to every future audience to give their best to keep them coming back. For what it's worth, if this is their last tour, they're going out on top. Hey, that's what I just said. Thank you for meeting my rambling, writes Chia. C-H-I-E reads like chia seeds. Thank you so much for sharing. I do appreciate that. And yeah, man, that pulls at the heartstrings just a little tiny bit. All right, let's go here. Claudius Kumar writes this. I've been listening to you for a while, and thank you for doing the podcast. Thank you for listening. I will be attending my 17th concert on December 10th, and I will be 4 rows back from the stage. This is the closest I've got to see my heroes. I've been seeing them since Black Celebration, and I feel blessed that my favorite band is still around doing this. I listened to People Are People back in 1984, and it was so different. Then, when I saw the Black Celebration tour, I was so overwhelmed to see how different DM is. Since then, I never miss any DM tour, and I managed to see the Memento Mori tour on 3/28 of 23 on my birthday in LA, and what a gift that was. I'd never dislike any Depeche album. All the albums have depth in them. My favorite top 3 will always be Violator, Black Celebration, and Ultra. My top 5 songs: Enjoy the Silence, Shake the Disease, Walking in My Shoes, It's No Good, and My Favorite Stranger. Keep it up. DM fan for life, Claudius. Absolutely, Claudius, I will, and thank you so much for the email. And that's a nice, tight little list of favorite songs, if I do say so myself. All right, let's go to friend of the show, Stephanie from the Baltic Coast. Again, she writes, I listen to your podcast every week, and thank you so much for it. I was wondering what attracts people to Depeche Mode and what the term religion means in this context. I can only speak for myself, but this band is an indelible factor in my life. I can turn to them when life has its challenges. This year, when my beloved grandma died, Memento Mori came in handy. Some days I wonder what's missing, and then I listen to Depeche Mode, even if it's just while preparing food in the kitchen, and my world is a little bit better. It's a phenomenon. I'm always happy about the feedback from listeners and that so many people leave the concerts happy. One more thing. Surely we can all agree that 99th place for Memento Mori is nice, but a complete understatement, right? That's it for me today. Keep up the great work, and I hope you and your family are in the best of health. Best wishes and a lovely winter from the Baltic coast, Stephanie. So a couple of things in here. One, yeah, I agree with you. Depeche Mode should have been higher up in that Rolling Stone ranking. All things considered, though, I'll take them placing at 99th, considering the number of albums that came out in the past year, and how, when you look at lists like that, they tend to be pretty pinkies up. So, listen, it wasn't 100, and it's Depeche. I'll take it. You know, when it comes to the term religion and what it means in this context, so I think that's different for everybody. I mean, clearly, Depeche Mode has been a defining feature of my life ever since hearing Shake the Disease. Much in the same way, you know, my fandom of Star Wars, right? But Depeche Mode hits me on a much different level, on a personal level, because like you, Stephanie, and I'm sure you listening, we've all turned to Depeche Mode at some point in our lives, and it's provided us comfort, and it still does to this day. Now, as an individual that believes in the Lord God Almighty, I look at music as being a gift from God, and therefore I look at Depeche Mode as being a gift from God as a God as well. One of the things, just in terms of my own religious upbringing and my relation to Depeche Mode, is I've loved the themes that Martin has written, and this really is more specific to Martin than Dave. I think Dave draws off of his own experiences, but Martin has always, you know, dabbled in the religious aspect of it, and more on a questioning level than anything else. I mean, even when you look at a song on Memento Mori, like Soul With Me, right? But certainly going back to Songs of Faith and Devotion is probably one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite albums. But even as a young, you know, as a kid trying to find my way in this world, raised in a staunch Christian household and going to church and listening to what is and would be considered, you know, secular music, there was a challenging aspect to what Depeche Mode brought and what Martin's lyrics brought. And it helped me in my own faith. It challenged me to think about things on a number of different levels. And again, crafted, you know, who I am, and also a part of my, you know, beliefs even today when I love listening to those songs. You know, I'm the type of individual that chuckles at the, I don't want to say comedy, but it is comedy in a dark sense, of a song like Blasphemous Rumors. I may not agree with the lyrics, but I didn't write the lyrics, and I can still enjoy the song for what it is. So, Stephanie, I don't know if that answers your question at all, but that is one of the aspects of Depeche Mode that really draws me to the band in Martin's writing, is that devotion aspect of it. And again, if I can say it for the fifth time on this show, why I love Songs of Faith and Devotion so much, and the thematics and the themes surrounding that. And again, the ambiguity of the lyrics that Martin writes. And Dave to a lesser extent as it relates to religion. But as always, if you want to comment, I hope you drop me an email, talkshownerd@gmail.com, or leave a comment up on YouTube as well. Thank you so much for checking out this week's episode. As always, if this is one of your first times listening, I hope you'll support my nerd world and check out my science fiction series, EMBARK. For those of you that have heard this spiel before, thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys again next week. For those that are newer, you love Depeche Mode, you're listening to this podcast. If you also read science fiction, I hope you'll treat yourself, a friend, or a family member to my 7-book science fiction space opera series. Set in the future. Had a bit of a technical glitch there. Set in the future, where air and spaceflight culture has replaced car culture. It is inspired in part by Depeche Mode, life in the so-called space age, the world we live in, and life in general. Depeche Mode plays a large part in the underlying themes of the story, and the main character himself is a massive Depeche Mode fan at a time in the future when the music of the 80s through the 2000s is nostalgic and popular among the characters of the story. They also feature references to Depeche Mode, both direct and indirect, while telling an exciting science fiction space opera story. In Book 1, Catho lost her father 1 year ago, and yesterday he gave her the key to saving humanity. She just doesn't know it yet. The stars are within reach as rival megacorporations D-Corp and Enercon have made spaceflight available to the masses. But when an industrial accident inside D-Corp sets off a catastrophic chain of events, all of Earth is at risk. Meanwhile, haunted by the passing of her aerospace engineer father, Keith Amaro focused on one thing, honing her skills as a pilot. She'll need more than her training when a cryptic message launches her unwittingly into the middle of an emerging interstellar conflict. With the ruthless leader of D-Corp attempts to exploit the disaster and seize control, Keitha must confront her past after discovering what may be the only hope of saving Earth's evacuees from annihilation. If you like your science fiction to be epic, filled with some romance and action, EMBARK is perfect for you. It's written for adults, but great for ages 11 plus. 7 books in all in the series. You can pick up book 1 today in ebook, free on Kindle Unlimited, and an ebook for just 99 cents. Also available in audiobook, paperback, and hardcover. And you can purchase your paperback and hardcovers directly from me by emailing talkshownerd@gmail.com. Just let me know you're interested in which books you like. I'll send you details. Or you can head on over to amazon.com or mynerdworld.net. Thank you so much for checking out this week's episode. As always, I hope wherever you are, you're happy, you're healthy, and you are safe. I'll talk to you again next week. Hopefully I'll have a review of Strange and Strange 2 next week. Talk to you then. Bye.
Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Hi, this is Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to
My Nerd World.